Now let's get into behind the scenes of Sonder. Who are we? We're industry professionals from all over the world and all over different studios, from Pixar, Disney, Oculus, Blizzard, ILM, EA, and more. Our team is built to accommodate new tools and pipeline, so that required us to think differently. So we hired a lot of young artists and also veterans. Because we believe that veterans are more of a mentor, and the young artists, they're down to get dirty and gritty, especially if you're building a new pipeline. So this is a passion project. Because it's a passion project, we had to be very creative in how we produce our work. There's no budget at all. So we had to rely on free tools and just open software. This forced us to be really creative with our pipeline. So why did we choose Unity? We wanted to break the stereotype that an engine is only made for video games. We saw the potential early 2015. This was a time when VR had a crazy buzz. People were mostly using an engine for games, mobile, VR, AR, but not film like this. But early 2015, I'm sure you guys have seen Blacksmith. So that was a huge inspiration for us. You know, if Blacksmith could do it, I think we could do something similar as well. Also, during this time, no one was using a game engine at the caliber of a feature animated film. We wanted to make it difficult for you to distinguish a film that was made in Unity versus Hollywood. And I think we achieved that. So when I was writing Sonder, it took me around 14 different versions of the story. We had a version of the story where Finn, our main character, would teleport to different locations when he falls asleep and wake up. Or Finn would live in a forest where everything around him would be 50 times bigger. He would be really small. Or Finn would have a pet fox. Even Finn would turn into a vine and become a tree. Here's a look at Finn's emotional chart. I use this chart a lot to help guide me in developing the story. The arc of the story follows the stages of grief. The film starts with Finn living in denial, then being in a state of depression in the dead forest, and then exiting the forest with him being in a state of optimism. As we were developing Finn being lost in the forest, we had to figure out clever ways to make him look depressed or malnourished or disheveled. Because we didn't have a large budget, we couldn't design every single model or all these details. So we had to be really creative. Some of the tricks that we found was, what if we put Finn's hair down in front of him? That made him look a little bit more depressed. And if it's slicked back, he looks healthier and happy. And we also found little things like giving him a beard. And the beard, I'm not sure if you guys saw, but the beard would slowly grow throughout the film. So at first, when we were developing the story, we gave Finn a backpack. And it felt normal to give a guy a backpack if he's being lost in a forest. But then we soon realized that it made him look like it was too planned, that it was comfortable. Usually, when you're depressed or lonely, you don't plan for that, right? That's something that just happens. So which we do not want at all. So here are some explorations of Finn and Natalie's outfit. It's important to pair them up to make sure their designs are complementing each other. So we didn't want to give him Finn a jacket in the forest because this would imply that he came prepared. So we gave him a button-up shirt, and that made it feel a little bit more mysterious, more for the user to question, like, why is he there and what's the purpose? Here's the flower that represents the relationship. Finn has an obsession to take care of the flower, and when you're obsessed with something, the rules and laws does not apply anymore. You're willing to do everything in your means to save this flower. So here's a construction example of the flower pot. Originally, we were going to have him carry the flower wherever he went. We learned quick that that was just silly. We needed him to have 2 hands to survive. So a flower pouch made really sense to us. So here's a design of that. So during pre-production, this mood chart helped other departments begin visual research. We didn't have any storyboards during the stage of production, so we had to turn for movies for inspirations. Some of the movies that really inspired us was Like Crazy, Boo Valentine, Princess Mononoke, 500 Days of Summer, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. So lighting plays a big role in this film. There are so many photos that we were researching. We wanted the light and shadow to create an emotional arc, a feeling of distant memory. Flashback scenes are meant to be really bright and beautiful, and the forest is really bland and uninviting. So I'm going to show you guys a video next. So while I was writing the script visually, I needed to figure out how to cut from being in the forest to a flashback moment. What I found was making sure anytime you cut from a flashback scene to a forest or vice versa, it needs an emotional purpose that ties in with how the character is feeling, so the energy and mood will pass over to the next scene. This scene builds up with the river becoming louder and louder. Then it will cut to an intense conversation with the close-up of their face. Now, a shot like this works a lot better because there's a buildup of the river, then there's a buildup of tension with the relationship.
Why can't you look at
So these 2 movies are Into the Wild and Like Crazy.
Don't shout. I'll shout if I want to shout.
No, you won't shout.
So next, for the vines, the sound guys and our sound team, Kevin Dusablon and Mike Forrest, wanted to make the vines have an iconic feel to it. Just like when you hear Godzilla, Jurassic Park, Aliens, and many other creature movies. So the only way to create something so original, you would have to go out into the world and record things that you would never thought possible. So for the next slide, I'm going to play you guys the sound of the vines. I want you guys to guess what's recorded in it. Can you guys do that? You guys just shout out the answer, then we'll show you the answer afterwards. Somebody said dog. Somebody said lion. All right. So we had to be really creative. So one of the first objects is this. Can you turn up the volume just a tiny bit? So you could hear that crackling wood. So they went into an apartment, like an old San Francisco apartment. They were just standing around. That's all they're doing. They're just pivoting. And they could get this crackling sound. And they also put like a bowling ball in the floor, and they would roll it to get the crackling sound. All right, so somebody guess lion. Somebody guess a dog. Close. So they went to the San Francisco Zoo to record different types of animals. So the last object. Yeah, this cow does not look happy at all, right? With a mic on his face. So as you could see or hear, that you really need to step outside of your comfort zone to make something really original. It's no different than sorry about that. It's no different than how we use Unity's engine to tell an animated story. So now, let's dig a little bit deeper into production. I want to welcome Sara Sampson to the stage, and she'll dive a little bit deeper.
Thanks, Neth. Thank you, Neth. So as you guys know, in production, if you look behind the screen, you will find the secret sauce to making anything happen. And for us, this was our crew. So we had a well-oiled, passion-fueled, fun-loving machine that we called our Sonder crew. Like Neth mentioned, it was a combination of industry professionals from Pixar, DreamWorks, you name it, and recent college grads. You know, we've had some really interesting, inspirational stories on our team. People who are not necessarily challenged in their day jobs, but they wanted to join Sonder to challenge themselves, to try something new, to lead a team for the first time in their life, are, you know, an artist to learn how to model in Maya. So we try to create a very supportive environment for our group. This photo was actually taken 3 years ago. This is when we had no idea the challenges that were about to hit us. That's why we're so excited. But even so, you know, we always kept this energy. We always thought back to this moment when times were the hardest. We had to keep moving forward. We had to stay positive. And this was the team that got us through this film over 3 years. And of course, we had to have jackets. We all got matching jackets. We're not a cult, I promise. But we grew to a crew size of almost 144 people. And the reason why we had to scale, again, we were working nights and weekends, holidays, early mornings, just to get this film done. So when someone was able to volunteer and jump in and model a handful of forest assets, we were so excited. Of course, we're going to put them on our team. And this is a map that shows how we were scattered all over the world. We had to work with 9 different time zones. As you can imagine, it was incredibly challenging trying to find meeting times that worked for everyone on the team. We tried to be very almost religious about meeting up. We wanted to create a sense of community. We wanted to have a routine. This is what we found to be, you know, a very successful collaboration, so that our members didn't feel like a cog in the wheel, but they felt like they were really contributing to this film. And so when we were structuring our team, we found it very important to establish leaders early on. So these are our core members, our department managers. Andrea Go, our TD supervisor, she is based in Oakland, California, so she was responsible for pipeline and tools for Maya. She worked with a lot of the technical Maya departments and also oversaw our assembly when we were importing assets from Maya into Unity, which was surprisingly a very difficult thing to do. And we also had Yisam Hoi, who is based in Malaysia. She oversaw all of our creative departments, from art to modeling all the way to animation. And lastly, we had Faraz Rayani. He is our CG supervisor, so he was in charge of Unity pipeline and tools, effects, lighting, rendering, color timing. So these are our heavy hitters on Sonder. And in order to help with the day-to-day, we named and appointed several supervisors and leads in our various departments. So we try to kind of mimic the workflow of a studio. And again, because we had no budget, we had to be very resourceful, very thoughtful about how we use tools and which tools we could use, basically for free. So Jean will go into a little more detail about our pipeline tools like Maya and Unity and Houdini. Again, we decided to go with a game engine to save on render farm costs. It was a huge win for us. And we also had review tools to help with working remotely. We had to kind of improvise on our software tracking. We ended up doing our own tracking system with Trello and a combination of Google Docs. We also had file management, created our own tools, and relied heavily on Google Drive, and eventually stored our EXR renders in Amazon. And we went with SVN for version control. So as you can imagine, with a team of this size and this scattered, communication is key. So apps like Slack were a lifesaver. When someone was working midnight in California, The next day, someone would pick up immediately in Malaysia and vice versa. So these apps were wonderful for us. And just to give you an idea of what a typical Sunday evening would be, this is us working over Zoom. We made it a point to have everyone show their video. Again, trying to establish that connection with each other. Even though we're not in the same room, we're still seeing each other, we're still troubleshooting at night and making this film. So this is a quick breakdown of our milestones. As you can see, in May 2015, we finished our script. This is when we're also assembling our core crew. So we're doing a lot of recruiting in this stage. It's a little hard to recruit when you're not getting paid, but we found those passionate people. We also kicked off design and world exploration and character design. And so in 2016, this is when we started diving deep into our pipeline, and we realized we don't even know if this is going to happen. How can we know if this pipeline is going to work? So we decided to do a proof of concept. So some of you may have seen our teaser that we released in 2017. Actually in 2016, sorry. And this was a way for us to solidify the look and feel of Sonder. So traditionally, game engines lean towards photorealism. We wanted to go towards a 2D stylized look. It was a little scary at first, but this teaser helped us realize, okay, we can do this. And 2017 was heads down production year for us. We started wrapping a lot of our departments, and most notably, animation. Once that's final, this film is going to get done. So we kept working, and then in May 2018, we finished the film. We reached the finish line. So very quickly, I just wanted to give you a brief overview of our workflow and how we kind of split up the departments and the work that our amazing team did for the show. So starting out, it's always great to have a color script. This color script is great for nonlinear production processes. This is kind of the guideline for the crew to see where this ship is going. What is the final look of the film? So it's our early attempt to map the color, the lighting, emotion, and the mood in the film. Here are some examples of world exploration. We had 11 unique sets in the film, quite a lot for a 13-minute film. And then we also, of course, did character exploration. So art images like this would help inspire all of our downstream departments. So when animation is trying to figure out who these characters are, personality traits, these are the images that they will refer to. So we had 5 screenings in storyboard reels. This was to help us really hone in on the story, tighten the story. The film started at 20 minutes, and then we were able to tighten to a 13-minute runtime. And during this phase, it's really important to not be precious with your drawings. It's great to just try something, fail fast, throw it out, try something new, and that's really what we were trying to do with this. So our lighting keys, this is what was heavily referenced downstream when our lighters were trying to mimic that 2D look. As you can see, we have 18 sequences in the film, and you can kind of get a feel for the progression of the mood. So once we actually know what is going to end up in the film, we start our CG asset phase. So our team was actually really familiar with Maya already. We decided to cut down on new software learning curves and stick to Maya for CG modeling, for texture, for camera. So a good chunk of our pipeline actually took place in Maya. But you don't need to model everything. We tried to be smart and economize where we could. We actually ended up creating several matte paintings. Hopefully you guys can't tell what's a matte painting and what's been really modeled. And here is an example of a rig that we created for our character. Let me press play. Okay. Not sure why this isn't working. But you can kind of get a sense for the amount of work that goes into our character rigs in general. And it's a close collaboration with character modeling, with rigging and animation, trying to push the performances as much as possible. So this is an example of our animation. If this video is working, I apologize. So basically, animation and claw simulation, that marks the end of our Maya usage. And from here, we had to kind of develop a new department for our show. We called it Assembly. So there's actually a lot of work that goes into taking assets from Maya and importing those into Unity. And again, Jean will go into a little more detail about that. So for effects, we started to lean on Houdini. We also did a lot of effects in Unity. And our final lighting was done in Unity. And this was actually a really fun experience for our lighters, the ability to move lights quickly. And actually, what you see in your frame is what you get. You don't have to send anything off to a render farm and wait to figure out what it's going to look like. So this allows for immediate collaboration, feedback from the director, feedback from your team. So it was a big bonus for us. And to top it all off, we had the amazing opportunity to do our final mix at Skywalker. It kind of was a very special moment for us, just thinking about all of the work that we put into this film for 3 years, and to finally kind of be at our childhood dream place to record sound. So very fortunate for that. And before I pass the mic to Jean, we'd actually like to share a quick video that shows a few stages in our process, from storyboard to layout to animation to our final render, just so you can compare. So this next video kind of breaks down our first sequence in the film, and you can see all the different stages that we went through. Awesome. And now I would love to invite Jean Moreno to the stage, who will talk about all things technical on our show.
Thank you. So hi again, I'm Jean Moreno. I was the shading and Unity tools lead on the show, and I'm going to give you a quick technical insight. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, so let's go about the benefits of using Unity for filmmaking. Sorry, yeah. Compared to traditional CG, using Unity gives you fast rendering. So basically what you see, what you get. You got almost instant results. Lighters could just adjust the lights and get results in real time. I'm sorry. I think it doesn't work as expected. You can render locally, so you don't have to send the work off to a render farm and wait for the result. It just happens on your machine, and it's a consumer-grade machine. Everyone was working from home on their laptop and desktop, so it doesn't need that much power. So that means that you have a fast iteration cycle, and it means that you can iterate more, which means better quality, but also it's more pleasant to work that way instead of having long wait times between your working sessions. It's also cheaper. As I said, you don't need a render farm, so you don't have that cost. And you use consumer-grade machines and GPUs. It's flexible. because you can easily make tools with Unity. You can create menu items, toolboxes, automated scripts that just do a lot of work for you, and it's just seamlessly integrated into the software. It was easy to make custom shaders. We were in forward rendering, so that means that the shader was responsible of the final color that would end up on screen, and it was easy to make adjustments and make quick shaders for some specific stuff, like the tiers. And you could easily arrange the set. Say, for example, in your shot, you have some objects that block your way. You can just move them around easily in Unity, or just hide them and just get rid of that. And the asset store was also a great resource to find things, solutions to our problems that we wouldn't have time to develop ourselves. Compared to making games, making a film with Unity is great because it's not actually real-time. It could be, but it wasn't necessary in our case. So we could afford up to a few seconds per frame. And that gives us a lot more power compared to a game where you're blocked to 33 milliseconds. The other great thing is that you don't have any code, you don't have interactivity, so that leaves us even more power for rendering and visuals. Almost no optimization needed because no interactivity, so no script, except for the tools. But as far as the visual side goes, shaders, VFX, you don't need to go optimize that much. And we actually used a huge particle system for the teaser with giant billboards, dozens, even hundreds of them, and that was fine. You should never do that for a game. No debugging needed, except for tools again, but it was very minimal. We didn't have a QA team, for example, that would test this. Yeah, it was pretty easy. And no building. Everything is done within the Unity editor. Even rendering, we just have to hit the play button, and it would just render to EXR frames. Let's take a look at the pipeline that we had. So we started on Unity 5.4 in 2016. There was no timeline. There were some bugs with HDR rendering, things like that. So we upgraded with each major version, and that was kind of painless because, yeah, we don't have that many scripts, just a few things. So it was a pretty easy process. Then we looked on Unity 2017.1 just for stability and make sure that we will use that version. We had one project per sequence in the show. That means that it was faster to import and load the project, and it was also faster to download. As I said, everyone was working from home, so everyone has to download each project to work on it. So if you can just download one sequence and not the full show, that's better. Just so you know, one project was about 10 to 40 gigs in size without the library folder, so that's quite big. If we had just one giant Unity project for the whole show, that would have exploded. And we have one scene per shot. It's because we have different sets per shot, so the objects, even on the Maya side, were placed differently depending on the shot. And it was easier for concurrent users on the same sequence. Each lighter could actually have their own workflow that was a little bit different from a different lighter, so that was fine. And it's easier to update when you have just one animation file for this specific shot and that you need to fix something and update it. You just update that Alembic file and not the full sequence. So that's, yeah, better. We used SVN, so subversion for syncing and version control. There are a few reasons for that. First, you can do partial checkout. So that means that you're not forced to download the whole repository to get the project, and you can just download the sequence you're interested in. It has good binary files compression, which is like 90% of the assets. That's always good. And it's easier to understand than a distributed version control system like Git. And it was necessary because we have a lot of non-technical people, and so version was already quite difficult at times. So we used externals to share files between projects, especially textures. So that was great to reduce the disk space on the server, so to reduce costs. But it wasn't so easy to use, a little bit tedious. The thing is that we explored using symlinks instead, but they wouldn't work on Windows, despite being technically feasible. It's just incompatible with SVN. It was hosted on an unmanaged virtual server. So that means that we had full control on the SVN installation. And we could add different authorizations for each team working with Unity so that they would avoid mistakes and like put things in not the correct folders or delete things by mistake. We would have liked to make a custom script to handle meta files. You always have to make sure that when you commit a new asset, you have to add the meta file along with it. But we didn't have time to research that, unfortunately, and it did lead to quite a few problems. Here's a diagram of what's happening. So it starts in Maya with modeling, rigging, set dressing, layout, animation, camera. We export that using FBX for the set and Alembic for the characters and the props, everything that's animated, basically. It goes in Unity. So as Sara said, we made a special team to be the bridge between Maya and Unity, which is the assembly team. And they would just bring the assets into Unity and make sure that everything was imported properly, that materials were set up, and that the scene was just ready to be lit. This is where lighting comes. They light the scene. They can do additional animations there for light, materials. We did some VFX authoring inside Unity for particle systems, for custom shaders too, like the wind in the mountain area. And then post-processing for depth of field, fog, bloom, motion blur, things like that. We also used Houdini for simulated VFX and water splashes, snow trails. And this was great because we already had the Alembic pipeline in place. So when we used that, it was just very easy and seamless, and it was just working in Unity. Then we render out EXR frames in 4K. The reason for that is that we didn't use any anti-aliasing solution in Unity. Instead, we rendered in 4K aliased, and we can downscale to 1080p, and that was our anti-aliasing solution, which is called super sampling. Then we used Nuke for compositing for some specific shots where we had to separate background, foreground, and characters. We could have done that in Unity, but we didn't have the time to research and look into it. As I said, I don't know if I mentioned this actually, but nobody knew Unity when starting on the show, except for me. So they had to learn the software at the same time we were figuring out the pipeline, so it was kind of complicated. So sometimes they used software that they already knew professionally. And same for color grading. It could have been done in Unity, but we didn't have time to look into that, and instead they used a well-mastered software. The Alembic workflow, so it starts in Maya. We just export from Maya as ABC files. We have some custom tools so that we just batch export and just hit a button instead of looking for the folder and appropriate directory. Then batch import from Unity into the folders. The assembly team comes, prepare the scenes in Unity, again custom tools, so that it automatically creates the necessary materials and the timeline clips for Alembic. And then they can go in and just tweak the materials to the shading and lighting. Timeline workflow. So we had some tools, as I said. You just go into a menu item, click on a button, and it will fetch all the Alembic that are in the scene and create their clips in timeline. So they will be automatically created, grouped, and locked so that nobody will move them by mistake. And then on top of that, lighters could just do custom animations to animate light, materials, and what they needed for the shot. We also had some small tools for timeline to easily offset all the keys at once instead of selecting, moving, and so that was handy. So some project level settings were tweaked per shot, so we had to find solutions for that. For quality level, quality settings, it was quite easy. We did tweak it per shot because of the shadow maps. You have to change the resolution and shadow distance depending on how close you are to the characters to get good shadows. So we just made one quality level per scene, so per shot, and that was fine. Then for the layers are extensively used to do light linking, which is the process of saying that those lights are supposed to lit the set, those lights are for the characters, and so on. And you use layers for that in Unity. This is the culling mask in the light inspector. So we had to make a custom system so that we could have a different set of layers per shot, so that means per scene in the project. And we made a simple text file format where you can just define the layer name, the path in the hierarchy using wildcards so that you can match multiple objects, and optionally apply to all its children. So you just had to load the correct layer config file, apply it to the scene, and you would get a brand new set of layers in Unity, and just light-taking would work. We used the asset store for a few assets. Here's a list. These are the most important ones. Alembic importer by Unity to work with Alembic files. DirectX X11 grass shader for all that is grass, mostly in the forest. Tony Colors Pro 2 was the shaders, the basis we used for the look of the show. HX volumetric lighting was for the volumetric light. Post-processing stack by Unity for all the post effects. And finally, offline rendering to EXR. And yes, Tony Colors Pro 2 is from me. On the asset store, they actually bought the plugin and contacted me, and that's how I joined the show. That was fun. Let's take a look at stylized shading. The principle is that there's no scientific basis. You don't compare stylized rendering to the real world. You don't have a scientific thing to look at and say, yeah, that looks the same. We didn't use physically based shading. It could maybe exist in some way for stylized rendering. We just didn't pursue that route. And it's entirely artistically driven. So that means that there's no wrong way to do it. You just have to find the target look and make sure that you stay coherent within the film. And our approach was to start with cell shading, which is the technique that gives you those crisp lines on models. We needed precise color control, just like you would do in a 2D drawing. You choose your colors precisely. And we tried to match the 2D color keys of the movie as close as possible, and we'll see some examples of that later. So cell shading, basically you have your light, your model. It gives you this nice gradient between highlighted surface and shadows, which is what we don't want. So you take a threshold value around there, and you say that everything that's above that value will be highlighted, and everything below will be in shadow. And you end up with this. Sorry. Whoops. You get this crisp line. It's not working again. That gives you a very cartoon and 2D hand-drawn effect. On top of that, we could control the threshold. So we could add additional smoothing and offset to really get the look we wanted. This is an example of the character with different smoothing value. You can see that at 0, it's just a crisp line. And then you can get variations in between to approach and be something between realistic and stylized. Then we needed precise color control. So this is with default colors and dark gray ambient, just so that it's not entirely black on the shadows. We could select the shadow color to give a different aspect. As I said, you need precise color control, like in 2D drawings. And doing that allows you to change the hue or the tint on shadowed part, which is what you would want in a stylized shading. On top of that, we had color fringing. It's really subtle. I'll just go back and forth. You can see that at the line of the shading, you can separate the color channels to give a different coloring effect. This was great to fake subsurface scattering for the skin and also for the clothes. Then we forgot the shader at different stages. We could change the hue, saturation, and value easily so that people could approach the target color that they wanted to. So this is an extreme example, obviously, but it was really useful. And then you add the light, color, and intensity that will give you the feeling you're looking for. So it wasn't necessarily done in this order, it would just be back and forth between the material, the lights, and so on, so that you get exactly what you want. So let's look at a few examples of matching color keys with the 3D scene. And the lighters did a really awesome job for that. You'll see. So this is the color key. This is a 2D hand-drawn image. And this is the final image we end up with in Unity. And if you go side to side, you can see that it's pretty close. Another example, color key, hand-drawn, and final render in Unity. Again, pretty close as far as colors go, even the set arrangement and the characters animation. the mountain, this is the color key, and this is the final render. Apartment again. This one, they changed the colors a little bit, but still, it feels very similar. And lastly, one of my favorites, in the bedroom where you have this really nice shadow from the window. This is the color key, and this is the final render. Side to side. So let's take a look at the lighting process. So first, we have the look development department, which made separate Unity projects to verify that the materials were set up correctly, linking the textures, looking that it's behaving as it is in Maya, because we could have up to 8 texture layers on each character. Then we go into the sequence level, where we have foundation lighting, which is a first pass to get the mood, general global mood of the sequence. Then you have master lighting, which is going deep down in details and trying to match the color keys. And then you have at the shot level, shot lighting, so where you really fine-tune and make it as best as you can. We had a folder-based material priority system. It was easy to override for each step. So at first, when you come in a new scene that was made by master lighting, you don't have any shot materials, you just have to create them, and they will be automatically assigned if they do exist in the scene, so that you can override the value but keep the master level for the different shots. Nobody had to ever manually assign a material to the object in Unity. So in the end, the final pixel color is determined by the material values, the ambient color, the real-time lights, the negative lights, which is a custom system that we made, where you can just place volumes in the scene and they would just block lighting, either direct or ambient, or both. We'll look into it later. And then the post-processing effect. And you can control everything in Unity, and you can override when needed, and you can animate when needed easily, thanks to timeline. So let's look at the frame lighting analysis. We will go from this unlit scene to this. So we start with the geometry. Set is an FBX, Fin and Flower Alembics. And we start with a flat green ambient color. We didn't use like skybox ambient or 3-color ambient, just because we want to avoid that gradient look and keep some things flat for the stylized shading. You can see that we can override the ambient, as it's the case here for the shot and the flower. Then we have overcast lighting, so that's about 20 lights for the set. For the character, 12 lights. Volumetric lights, this is thanks to HX volumetric lights, which I talked about earlier. Negative lights. So let's take a look at that. This is the screen space mask of the negative lights. Basically, you just place volumes in the Unity scene. You can have spheres, cubes, tubes. You can define the smoothing of the outer edges of the volumes. And they will intersect with geometry and create this screen space mask that will then be used in the final shader as an additional shadow source. Unlike shadow maps, though, this one is RGB, so that means that you can block different channels depending on what you want, which is a different way to achieve color fringing, for example, from shadows. So this was the result with negative lights. Then we have sunny lighting for the set and for the character. On that shot, overcast and sunny was separated because we are animating the sunny lights to fade them out because the sun is obstructed by the cloud at some point. And volumetric light again for the sun. And you've got stylized fog, which is also a custom post effect we made, where you can just define different colors based on the depth of object, and also optional blurring to give a diffusion effect. And then post-processing the depth of field in this case. So let's take a look at all the steps together in a small animation. So for this particular shot, we have around 70 real-time lights. which sounds like a lot, especially in forward rendering, but it was actually mostly small-range point lights, so it wasn't too expensive, and it actually ran surprisingly well on my 5-year-old computer in 720p, and it took like a few seconds per frame to render in 4K, so that's still pretty fast compared to like a render farm. I want to acknowledge the work that the lighters did because we gave us some tools and they just went crazy with them and made the best they could, and I think it really shows who got the film. So that's it for me. Thank you. We have just one last video to show you before Q&A, so please welcome back Neth and Sara to the stage.
Thank you, Jean. So we just wanted to kind of highlight our team because these are the people that made this whole experience possible. This is actually taken on our wrap party night. People from all over the world flew to be here together, sometimes meeting for the first time in person. Jean, coming from France all the way to Oakland, California to celebrate this amazing experience. So yeah, we're just really excited to be here today and sharing a little bit about our process and, of course, debuting our film.
So we just have one video to show you, and it's a special video that we made for our crew members during the wrap party. It's to just summarize our experience, how awesome it was, even though it was really challenging at times. But we thought it would be really nice to show it to you because this is a premiere for us, and you'll get to see the many faces of Sonder and how awesome it was to work on this project.
Action! Okay, let's go.
All right, my name is Kevin Dussablon.
Hi, my name is Stefan Schumacher. I'm the animation supervisor on Sonder.
Adam Habib, director of photography, layout.
Andre Go, and I am the technical supervisor.
My name is Andy Wu, and I'm a lighting artist.
Annie Chia.
I'm Cindy Lee.
David Tingyu Dai.
I'm Dylan Salai.
My name is Ilham.
I'm Ellen Arnold.
I'm Tarun Lack.
My name is Kyle Remus.
My name is Gates Robert Clark.
We're here celebrating Sonder. Crikey. What's this?
My name is Harimo.
Hikari Toriumi.
I am Julian Teo.
Hi guys, I'm Jess Tom.
Jesse Woodward.
My name is John Virolingo.
Hi, my name is Iris Ching.
J1.
I'm Cal Thanisov.
My name is Kevin Nguyen.
I'm Jean Moreno.
Hi, my name is Ferrat Enderolo.
Hi, my name is Kian. I'm a lighter for the shell, and I'm in the airport. Yay! Yay!
Louis Rapinski.
Lucia Guedianti and
Nikki Quick. I'm Michael Tchaikovsky.
I'm Charlene.
Misty Tingjiang.
It's Nicole Chen, and I'm the fixed animator on Sonder.
My name is Neil Rashenker.
Hi, I'm Marius.
Rachel Wu.
Hi, my name is Ria Shetty.
Sarah Tran.
I'm Sarah Hong.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sunny.
I'm Alvin.
I'm Tawan.
I'm Toshi.
Trevor Howard.
I'm Isa.
Oh, I didn't see you there. Hi, my name is Mike Forrest, and I was the composer, one of 2 sound designers, and the voice of Finn.
Ourselves a problem. I can see it's better than a shovel. I believe I found a way around it. I believe it's better than I found it. There's too much more to see it. There's too much more to feel this. I love you, and all of your pieces. There's too much more to see it. There's too much more to feel this. I love you, and all of your pieces. To me, a letter made of scarlet. Better when you've called it. Misery, the moment when I lost you. It's pleasure in a costume. more than what it cost you. There's too much more to see it. There's too much more to feel it. I love you, I love you. All of your pieces. There's too much more to see it. There's too much more to feel it. I love you, I love you. All of your pieces. 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 There's too much more to see it. There's too much more to feel it. I love you, I love you. All of your pieces. There's too much more to see it. There's too much more to feel it. I love you, I love you. All of your pieces.
All right. Yeah, to everybody watching, man, thank you.
I want to thank everyone here.
I relate to Finn because he's a man as well. To the Sonder team, I just wanted to say thank you so much for letting me be part of it.
It's just like a very cool culture and family, and I really thank you guys for that.
And now we can't wait to share this film with the rest of the world because they're gonna love it as much as we do.
I want to tell the Silva team that you guys are the most awesome team of individuals I have ever worked with, honestly.
So we just want to give a big shout out to our Soba crew out there. Thank you so much for making this film a reality. And thank you to everyone here today for watching our film and for hearing about our process. Thank you. So if you guys are down for asking questions, we are down for answering them. So please ask away.
Hey, I was wondering how you sort of managed, so like if each frame takes like a few seconds to render because you've got so many sort of stuff going on, how do you manage like the performance of the editor and like everything like freezing up and all of that sort of thing? Because that's been a problem when I've had, you know, performance issues in the editor and that.
Yeah. So yeah, that was a problem. You can't go too far because the editor will really be slowed down. And it was tedious sometimes, so that's a few seconds in 4K. And usually when you work, you're not in 4K, you're in 720p or 1080p, depending on what you can afford with your computer. And you know, you just have to close the scene view, the game view, make some things, or just disable lights. And that's really missing, actually. That would be perfect if you had a button in Unity. You just click, it just renders one frame so that you look at it, and then you know, you're done and you can keep working fluently in Unity. Hopefully, with scriptable render pipelines, you will be able to do that easily in the future.
How do you get the name Soba?
But yeah, that's a funny story because Sarah will tell the story. But when we were almost done with the film, we had to come up with a production name because when you submit it to film festivals, they always ask, like, what's the production? We're like, we're not really a production company, so we had to come up with a story, and I'll let Sarah tell that.
I don't know if it's the most exciting story, but we love soba noodles, and we just decided that this is going to be our code name. We come from studios like DreamWorks and Pixar. There's always a ridiculous code name for those films that make no sense, and sometimes it's literally as simple as picking your favorite food. So we are more than buckwheat noodles, but the name definitely stuck. So.
Hi, thank you for coming and sharing such an emotional story with us. I wanted to ask, how do you go about collecting such like high professionals from Pixar and ILM and all these studios, get them together, and how do you get the word out? And I do see a little bit that you had some like marketing material and things that you actually probably still have to pay for. So did you at some point find investors or something like that?
Well, I can take the recruiting question. So basically, we just have really good friends, and I think you have to be a little crazy to do a production like this because it is a huge commitment. And I think the core of our team really is just people who want to challenge themselves, people who have never had a chance to lead, maybe in their day job, and they want to gain that skill, just really trying something new, and this would be a project to allow them to fulfill that goal and kind of grow either as an artist or grow as a leader. And we also found people through friends of friends. We actually found Jean. Andrea, our TD supervisor, was looking for a way to create a stylized look in Unity, and she came across Jean, his Toonie Colors Pro in the asset store, reached out to him. We pitched the film to Jean, and somehow he agreed. He joined us. So, it's okay to talk to strangers on the internet every once in a while. But, a lot of stories like that. One of the inspiring stories that I really, I'll never forget, one of our folks who wanted to become an animator, he was working at UPS and taking classes at night. And he was a friend of a friend, and we've never worked with him before, but he had that energy and that passion. And now he's working as an animator. He's getting paid to animate. So, stories like that, people who want to challenge themselves, it's really just us getting lucky with finding that crew.
And I want to add something on top of that too. Like what we realized during this production for Sonder, there's 3 phases that we went through. The first phase is we, like what Sarah said, we would hire friends and friends of our friends. And a lot of our connections came from working in the industry for 10 years plus. So we had an array of artists and friends throughout many different studios. Then the second phase was when we released a teaser or a trailer that made it more worldwide, where we could actually show a proof of concept to say, this is what we're doing. It'll be great if you join our team. This is what you'll be doing. And also like using Unity to pitch and say like, we're using Unity on a film, which has never done before, which is really a catcher for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. Then third phase is, it's more of, I think we would post online, we'll just send a blast throughout the internet, just our friends of friends we just need help to come in and, where needs are needed. Then to answer your question about, when things are needed to be paid, usually it goes into my personal savings. So I've been working in the industry for over 11 years now. And all the money I saved is everything kind of went into this project. But I can't take all the credit. I know that a lot of us, like Sarah, Jean, and other people, would contribute to this project as well.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I just want to say it was important for us to kind of hold on to that autonomy and not seek investors and not seek funding, because we wanted to maintain that creative freedom. We definitely could have put energy into a Kickstarter. We could have found money if we really wanted to, but we wanted to have an experiment almost and see what would it be like to make a film without some kind of executive force.
Yeah, we were. I always believed in. Because some of the best inventions and some of the best ideas came from the garage or basement, right? Because you're limited with the tools. So I feel like if we're going to use Unity in our pipeline, which has, nobody has done at this level of quality, we got to have those limitations. And, look at where we're at now. So I think hopefully like this film and our talk will inspire you guys as well. Yeah, any more questions before we wrap it?
Hi, yeah. So with real-time rendering, you get a lot of frames out really fast every day. How did you keep track of dailies? How did you manage to review all that material every day, constantly? That's a production that I know was the Safari production had trouble with that. Like, they were producing so much content every day that the director couldn't keep up. So how did you manage it?
Yeah, so actually in our team, people built some really awesome tools, because when a lighter was working in a shot, they would just commit to SVN to get the latest, and then we can just render to EXR frames on their end, and push a button, it would upload those frames to Amazon in the correct folder, like it's a new version, so it detects that. And then the director would just have a tool on his hand, push a button, it will download all the latest versions of all the shots, and it would go in RV to playback. And in RV, you can even go further, up to 10 versions before, so you can compare it. And it was all seamless, all great. This was done by Robert Clark. I have to give him a shout out because really awesome tools, and that helped a lot. It was just so much time saved. Yeah.
Great, you guys. Yeah, thank you for your time, and thank you for watching this film with us.